Today I'm going to be ranking your favorite YouTubers' Minecraft builds. And let me just say before we get started that all these people's builds are amazing, so it's kind of subjective where people are ranked except for possibly one, which is very deserving of where they go. But if any normal person was on this tier list, they'd probably be in C or D tier. So if someone's in B tier, that doesn't mean that they're bad. It means that they're probably good, but there's people who are extra good. But anyway, let's get started with Good Times with Scar. This is Scarland, a build by Good Times with Scar, and this place is just amazing. Like, just look at all this life that they have here. There's armor stands. They just tell a different story. All these little carts and all these amazing buildings. So for Scarland, I'd have to give Good Times with Scar an S tier for sure. Now let's take a look at Impulse SV. Now this is just a shop that Impulse made called iBuy. And this shop is just, massive. And there's so much detail in here too. Like, look at all this gilded blackstone being used. And these trees, amazing azalea trees, and the inside too is just amazing. It's crazy that this was only a shop as well. And the elevators too. The elevators, you can select what floor you're going to and whatnot. While I don't think that iBuy was on the same level as Scarland, I still think that Impulse should be in A tier. Now it's time to move on to Keralis. Now Keralis's builds are definitely amazing. These things are highly detailed. There's so many little details you can find. Like, look at all this. I would have never thought of putting a minecart with carrots in there to make little plant bins. There's like so many little details you can look at. Like this little cart with a cat on it. It's like a wheelbarrow or something. Like banners everywhere. Just look at this tree growing out of this building. This winding staircase. There's just so much to look at. No one could forget to mention this amazing Colosseum, or the shipping barge with that crane and this old plane. And just because of the sheer amount of detail that's been put into everything and the thought that's gone into placing all these blocks, Keralis is definitely in S tier for sure. Now it's time to move on to Pearlescent Moon. Now this is just a masterpiece. This is an entire biome in of itself. And I think just from the sheer artistry of this biome, Pearl will also be getting S tier for sure. Now let's move on to Jaracraft. Now for Jaracraft, I was only able to get like a small build that I could download for free to show you guys. But even then, and this build is pretty amazing. Jaracraft is probably one of the best builders around today. Now judging off just this build, I'm going to give Jaracraft B tier. There's so many other of his builds that I wasn't able to get that would definitely be S tier and A tier, but for this one, it's going to be going in B tier. Now let's move on to Grian. Maybe this isn't as amazing as some of the others, but I think this build still has a whole lot of detail in it. I love how all these different shop windows tell a different story, and how the bank is perfectly framed between all these buildings. For that, I'll be putting Grian in A tier. Now let's move on to Mumbo of the Jumbo variety. Despite being a redstoner, Mumbo Jumbo has definitely outdone himself here. I love this droopy bridge and then all these buildings and trees as well. That's why I put Mumbo in A tier. This massive cliffside castle by B-Dubs is definitely one of my favorite builds here. I love how he's able to use unusual blocks like coal ore or diorite, polished diorite in his builds. And able to use them pretty well. And I love this dragon carpet as well. And of course this amazing throne. He's just able to use every block and make it a piece of art. And that's why I'd put B-Dubs in S tier. Now Etho's build is a bit of an unusual one. First off, he has no exterior, but I also love his use of unusual blocks that you might not see. And he definitely has functionality. Probably my favorite part of the entire build is this painting on the wall of a parrot. That's why I'd put Etho in S tier. Now I couldn't find any world downloads of anything Mr. Beast had built, but we do have this one video of when he did hardcore. And from here we can see his base. This base is a interesting shape to say the least. It uses some very rudimentary blocks. For sure compared to everyone else on here, Mr. Beast is an F tier. Now I added myself to this tier list too so you can get an idea of where everyone's at, and I'd say this is a floating island build that I did for a thumbnail. I'm pretty proud of the terraforming on this one. I thought that I got a pretty nice lake here with a nice tree and a bench I got a few nice trees actually. I also like the texturing on the bottom here with the hanging grass and moss and rooted dirt. And also some of the strips of like calcite and diorite. That's why I think that I am C tier. So just to give you an idea of even if someone is B tier, they're like S tier compared to where the average builder is at. Now I want to rank just the Hermitcraft people. So, because I think that then the spread might be a little wider. Of course, now like a D tier is going to match like an A tier from before or something like that. And I also want to rank them within their categories too. So like, I think top out of all of this has to be Pearl. Her base was definitely the top tier out of everyone here. The next one I want to put on this list for S tier is B-Dubs. I just think that his castle on a mountain was amazing. I think just the use of all those weird blocks that you wouldn't even think of, that's going to make him number 2 for sure. Next I'd have to put Scar. Scar's build just comes to life. The use of armor stands and all these other things just makes it feel lived in. Now in A tier I'd like to put Keralis' build. Keralis uses so much intricate detail, but I don't think he's quite on the level of extreme biome changing or making his build seem alive. The next I'd like to put Etho. I think his builds are just wacky. I like how he builds from the inside out. He just has a completely different approach to building. Now next I'm going to put Grian in B tier. I think that his build was great with the framing and everything. His build did feel a little bit alive, not as much as Scar's, but definitely a lot of thought went into the layout of it. Next in B tier, I'm going to be putting Impulse. iBuy was just massive, and it didn't just have building. Building's not all about just building something that looks nice. I think the redstone functionality of it made it just that more interesting. Now poor Mumbo gets last place in C tier. I think his build was definitely amazing. I think it's not quite on the scale of some of these other people, but considering he's mostly a redstone builder, I think that his base was really good. If you want to build your own tier list with these people, I'll link it in the description below. Also, I've put up 2 videos here that YouTube thinks that you might like, and make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. See ya.